evening, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. This is GRTS News at 2200 hours with me, Winifred Nicole, in the headlines this evening. Senior executive members of the Gambia Fashion Designers Association call on President Adama Barrow at the State House in Banjul. Gambia records over 7,000 COVID-19 cases, with rising local infections linked to the third wave. Attorney General and Minister of Justice clarifies misinformation in media spheres and public discourse on the deferment of submission of the TRRC report to the President. In Kenya, paragliding sports is gaining traction as many locals are now taking part in the extreme sports. And Uganda introduces digital tracking devices on vehicles to help fight rampant crime. Plus, a major debate heats up in Nigeria over the proposed return of artifacts to their countries of origin. Well, viewers, details of that and more coming ahead in the next 40 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, it's good to have you here with us once again. Now we begin with the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, who has taken note of the misinformation circulating in media spheres and public discourse regarding the recently announced deferment of the submission of the TRRC's report. Crucially, Section 29 of the TRRC Act provides that the Commission shall submit a report of its work to the President at the end of its operations, while Section 29(2) and 3 details the form and content of such report. The President of the Republic of the Gambia was ready to receive the Commission's report on the 30th of July as planned. In a meeting with the Attorney General and Minister of Justice on the 27th of July 2021, the Chairman of the Commission indicated that the report was not ready and the Commission will need more time to complete it. The Chairman confirmed that what was ready was a compendium of the findings and recommendations and not the full report, in light of the need to comply with the provisions of the TRRC Act, and most importantly, the post-submission timelines. The Attorney General deemed it essential that the full report was submitted and not just a compendium. The Chairman subsequently made a request for an 8-week extension, which was granted by the government. It is important to state that the postponement of the initial submission date of July 12 is immaterial in light of the fact that the report is still unfinished. As indicated in the statement released by the Chairman, the Commission has a considerable amount of work to do in completing the 16 volumes that make up the findings and recommendations, 16 volumes of transcripts, as well as other ancillary reports. It is imperative, therefore, that the Commission is given sufficient time to complete this very important task, so as not to jeopardize 3 years of remarkable work. The Gambia government remains fully committed to supporting the TRRC throughout this important process, including by ensuring that it is properly funded until the completion of its work. Furthermore, His Excellency the President is ready to receive the complete TRRC report as prescribed by the TRRC Act, as and when it is ready. The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, on Thursday received in audience senior executive members of the Gambia Fashion Designers Association. The delegation was at the State House to discuss issues of concern to the association and seek government support to promote the local fashion industry. Mamadou Diallo has the details.
Members of the Fashion Designers Association of the Gambia called on the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, at the State House. Speaking to reporters after their closed-door meeting with the Gambian leader, the President of the Association, Ida Conte, described it as very fruitful as they have discussed important issues surrounding their activities, constraints and challenges hampering the development of a vibrant fashion design industry.
One of the biggest associations in this country, ñun ñooy
We are one of the biggest associations in the country. We are working so hard to promote the fashion design industry. We have come with our young members who are expected to take over from us. They are highly motivated and have passion for the industry. Therefore, the government should recognize their efforts and give them all the support to transform the fashion design industry.
Si industry bi Gambian fashion dina change. They already door na di change sa.
She thanked President Barrow for granting them audience and also listening to their concerns, adding that they have received strong guarantees that government will support their cause, especially at a time when more young women are taking up fashion designing as a business. She described the Fashion Designers Association as one of the biggest in the country, urging Gambians to support local women engaged in the business to create employment opportunities, particularly for young women. Modu Jallo, GRTS News.
The Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate, has expressed concern with the rising number of cases of the new COVID-19 Delta variant. Speaking after a meeting of the COVID-19 Ministerial Subcommittee chaired by the Vice President, Her Excellency Dr. Aissatou Toure, the Health Minister reassured that government is doing everything possible to contain and control the spread of the deadly variant. Let's take a listen for more on that.
Up to date, and we equally discussed the strategies, enhancement of the strategies. Communication strategies had been on ever since, community engagement. Our teams have been on the radio, TV, the other news media. They've been engaging the community leaders, the opinion leaders in the communities, and so on and so forth. But of course, every day we need to step up what we are doing so that the message gets across to the people who need to hear. COVID-19 is a very serious disease, but with changing attitudes, when we adopt preventive measures, when we put on the mask, we maintain social distancing, and we maintain hand hygiene, wash our hands regularly or use the hand sanitizer, we'll be able to, inshallah, break the cycle of transmission. These are not so difficult, and I think we can all do this. But with infectious diseases, every individual has a responsibility. If others do and one person doesn't do, it doesn't help he himself, and it doesn't help the others. That is why it is very, very crucial that we all play a role in the fight against COVID-19. Part of what we discussed, in the meeting, just the recently concluded meeting, was the issue of wearing the mask at the workplaces. Very soon, a circular will go around, to the various ministries and agencies, ensuring that no one comes to work without putting on the mask. Because we all need to remember that mask wearing is mandatory in this country. That is the law, and it hasn't changed. So people who are coming to work must make sure that they put on the mask. The Secretary General is going to write that letter, and then it will be circulated.
The Gambia has recorded more than 7,000 cases of COVID-19 since the virus first entered the country in March 2020. The Minister for Health, Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate, has called for collective efforts to stop the spread of the virus. This as he delivered a situational report on the country's rising infections. Ibrahim Jallo has more on that.
This is the latest situation report on COVID-19. Amid rising number of cases in the country. The Minister for Health, Ahmed Lamin Samate, announced the total figure as of today.
Since the recording of the first COVID-19 confirmed case, the country has recorded 7,962 confirmed positive COVID-19 cases, with 6,848 recoveries, 213 deaths, and 895 active cases. Recently, 33 COVID-19 patients were discharged from the treatment centers.
As cases continue to surge, Mr. Samate believes a collective action is needed to boost the health system.
We have seen a dramatic rise in the number of cases and deaths from COVID-19 over the last few weeks. As we look forward, our health system needs collective efforts and mechanisms to bridge healthcare needs with service provision to our communities. Thus, the Ministry of Health and partners continue to work on the treatment centers and other modalities to halt the progress of COVID-19 in the Gambia.
Healthcare services at various treatment centers have been proactive, with many patients on oxygen supply, while more diagnostics tests are being carried out.
Currently, there are 93 patients admitted in the various treatment centers, and out of these, 37 are on oxygen. We currently have 10 people in hotel quarantine. Case fatality rate is at 2.8%. So far, 13,662 rapid diagnostic tests were conducted at the airport for travelers, and out of these, only 4 tested positive with the RDT and the PCR. They were all treated and discharged.
What is the availability of vaccines to Gambians as part of the containment measures? The health minister explains.
36,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were received earlier on in the year. 15,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine were also received from South Africa through the MTN initiative. 10,000 doses of Sinopharm vaccine were donated from Senegal, and recently we received 151,200 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccines from the United States government through the COVAX initiative.
Meanwhile, positive cases of COVID-19 have been recorded in all the 7 regions of the country. The minister therefore urges the general public to adhere to the preventive measures. Ibrahima Diallo, GRTS News.
Well, we were earlier joined live in the studio by Dr. Mustafa Abitei, Director of Health Services, to shed more light on the surge of the third wave of COVID-19 in the Gambia. Let's take a listen for more on that. Seen weeks of fast moving surge in the third wave of COVID-19. What were the projections and how did we get here?
Well, initially when it started in the first wave, the projections were we were going to have minimum about 151,000 cases and about 9,000 deaths. That was in the first. But fortunately, that has not happened. But in the third wave, what it has started, when we analyzed the 4 stages of the wave, it looked like this one is 4 to 6 times more at all indications than the first wave. So in the first wave at the peak, we were having about 500,000 cases. So that means if you say 4 times that, if we don't take measures and put in the regulations and enforce it and everybody follows it, we are saying that at the peak, you may be having about 2,000 cases minimum per day.
Per day. That's really alarming. Now, Africa's third wave is certainly not over yet. Am I right? Now, how bad is the situation, especially on the home front, as this is something our healthcare system can't deal with?
So already we are seeing all the signs. This new variant is quite very transmissible, and the disease severity is, like the minister said, is increased. So right now what we are faced with is, in the first wave we were not having so many people who were so sick at the treatment center. Right now if you go to the treatment center, you see young people admitted with severe disease. Those with comorbidities are also seriously sick. The number of people on oxygen and CPAP, like the ventilators, non-invasive ventilators, there are so many. And this has not happened in the previous wave. So you could see that this one is a more serious variant, and the disease we are seeing more dangerous. And the morbidity deaths actually is higher. Right? We are seeing more deaths with this one.
Now, according to the Minister of Health, 37 people on oxygen, using oxygen. Tell us, how are they responding to treatment as of now?
So I and the minister, we've been frequenting the treatment center, but this is in various treatment centers, like in Nemban, I think 23 are there, and on oxygen, then you have about 6 on CPAP, and then you have 6 at MRC. So we have them at various places, and some of them, we are very happy to note that at the treatment center, we have many patients who actually pass through CPAP, we are having ventilator being assisted, and they are fine and discharged. So a lot of them are doing well.
Good.
But, yeah.
Now, what form of interventions do we need, and how is the ministry intensifying containment efforts?
Right now, what we are focusing, number one, is to ensure that everybody wears masks wherever they go, and to ensure that they do social distancing. We are working with the police to enforce that. The other major one is the vaccination. So we are encouraging everyone to go out and to have the vaccine. And we, as a ministry, we are working on bringing a lot more vaccines. The Chinese ambassador has just announced yesterday or the day before yesterday that they are giving us another 200,000 Sinopharm. And we are working with the African Union to bring another 200,000 doses. And we are working with COVAX to bring many more vaccines, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and many other vaccines.
And how soon will that be?
Like for example, J&J, what we brought was just the first batch. We're expecting more than 300,000 doses, but only half came. So the other half should be coming soon. We were expecting this week. I'm sure it might come next week or so. 36,000 doses of COVAX from France through the that's AstraZeneca. We were expecting it, but it has not come. So sometimes we have delays, but we'll keep the public informed about it.
What else do you want to share with us?
Thank you for the opportunity, but we want to tell all our fellow citizens that this is a responsibility for all of us, and we should take it very strongly and to ensure that we advocate wherever we are. So if I'm at the home as a family head, you know, let's encourage our people to wear the mask when they go out, because when the disease comes to the house, it can be very detrimental to maybe the elderly, those with diabetes, and we can lose our loved ones.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mustafa Biteye, for your time on the news.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Mustafa Biteye there earlier talking to us about his ministry's effort in containing the pandemic. Now, we will stay with COVID-19 matters because people's intent on flouting the government's anti-COVID-19 restrictions are better advised to think twice as the police are out and about to enforce the regulations, where GRTS witnessed a police operation in Serekunda on the enforcement of COVID-19 restrictions. Baba Sila has the details.
Since the government reintroduced anti-COVID-19 restrictions, the Gambia police have been in the forefront in ensuring the public adhere to them. Globally, COVID-19 is a serious public health challenge. It requires both a medical and a law and order response. Police officers have been deployed at strategic places around the country to make sure maximum compliance is achieved.
The police management have seen that definitely there is a need for the enforcement of face masks so that we can have something called protection of life. Protection of life is very wide. When somebody is healthy, the life of the person is protected. And when that happens, we have a healthy nation. And a healthy nation can be a productive nation.
While a majority of Gambians say they very often or always wear a mask, there are still some who don't even believe in the existence of COVID-19, much more of masking up. They walk around in public spaces without any preventive precaution. The police are stepping in to save lives. As the popular saying goes, the life you save may be your own.
Young people who don't believe that COVID-19 is real. And you can see that when they are trying to enforce, they have a challenge from somebody who doesn't want to comply with security regulations. This is the challenge that we are having in this country. People should understand that security is here to help enforce regulations or acts or anything that the country wants.
According to medical advice, putting on a mask protects not only the individual wearing it, but the community as well. Beside the mask, physical distancing and frequent hand washing or use of hand sanitizer are essential measures in limiting the spread of COVID-19. For GRTS News, I am Baba Silla.
The State Intelligence Service, SIS, in its capacity as the regional chair, is hosting the 15th regional member states of the Committee of Intelligence and Security Services of Africa to a virtual meeting. The two-day forum kicked off on Thursday and is expected to discuss regional critical security issues. The objectives of the discussions include, among other things, plans to devise necessary recommendations that would facilitate the crafting of appropriate strategies for rolling back the terrorist threat on the African continent and preventing the region from becoming a terrorist hub. The SIS hosted a similar meeting in June 2019 when the service was selected as chair of the region, a position it still maintains thanks to the support, trust, and cooperation of government, the general public, and indeed regional and continental Africa. Well, we hope to bring you more on that story in our subsequent newscast. Well, over now to some parliamentary matters, as the National Assembly on Thursday adopted the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 with amendments. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mambu Njai, presented an estimate of $1.5 billion before deputies for consideration. Usman Mane has more on that.
The certificate of urgency issued by the executive thus the extraordinary session denied deputies to refer the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 to the Finance and Public Accounts Committee for proper scrutiny, providing a debate into the early hours of Thursday. Section 153 of the 1997 Constitution and the Public Finance Act obliged the Finance Minister to present an appropriation estimate before incurring expenditure. The Finance and Economic Affairs Minister, Mambu Njai, presented a $1.5 billion estimate detailing critical matters on recurrent and developmental estimates.
Key among these include the shortfall for financing upcoming election-related activities. Other expenses include the compensation of affected landowners on the planned extension of the Batil-Hardin Highway and the construction of secondary roads in preparation for the hosting of the next year's OIC Summit. The areas associated with the construction of the Kaleng Bustown and Bassa Yoruba roads, the toll facility at the Senegambia Bridge, the settlement of some of our equity areas due to international and regional development banks, the purchase of life support ambulances to be distributed across the country, scholarship areas owed to University of the Gambia, and finance for security-related activities are also key objectives of the proposal.
Deputies took turns to debate on priority areas in the estimate, raising concern on the need and urgency of some allocations amid the rising number of COVID-19 cases and recent disasters.
Not mistaken, no. $1.6 billion for the health sector. And on top of that, a year before that, the minister wired about $500 million. The World Bank gave us another $1 billion, all for this health sector. So I find it difficult for anybody trying to justify spending $134 million for ambulances. When all that money is spent together, and after all that money is spent, still patients have to buy their own bandages.
Magistrates are getting in the same transport with people they have convicted. What can be more dangerous than that? Magistrates traveling by public transport in the provinces from their courts to come back home or to go back to carry on their activities. Even if we did not have the revising courts, this is an opportunity to remedy a problem.
Is too small in relation to the remark column, where you, with that amount, 209 million, that's what the interior, the institution on the interior
the defense and the disaster management is going to share. When today Gambians need more assistance, especially disaster mitigation.
The Higher Education Ministry got their areas with the UTG settled to avoid challenges in the operations of the university.
I understand the constraints of the fiscal space, but also there are priorities within priorities. And the higher education, if you get higher education wrong, then you get the whole citizenry wrong, because they train everybody, including parliamentarians.
After intense arguments on the legality of some allocations and objects of the estimates on purchase of vehicles and the operationalization of the revising courts, as well as preparation for GRTS ahead of the electoral cycle, deputies finally adopted the bill with amendments.
In the day we had bilateral, we gave it to you, and the reason why we did that was for everybody to be sure that this institution needed support. And if it is not given, there is no way that the traditional coverage and live coverages that are supposed to be given could be given.
The Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 is expected to be funded with the proceeds from the BP Oil Company termination clause contract agreement with the government of the Gambia. Usman Mane, GRTS.
Well, let's take a look at efforts to advance nation building through education, as the International Open University of the Gambia has established a digital library to promote the culture of reading, with a new scheme set to roll out over 100,000 e-books in the Gambia. Louis Mendy has more.
The International Open University of the Gambia has begun the process of establishing a digital library of over 100,000 e-books, courtesy of Read Pakistan, a group that works towards promoting the culture of reading for a better world. Farooq Dal is the chair at Read Pakistan.
World Bank, in a study in 1998, concluded that the real gap between rich nations and poor nations was the gap of knowledge. If you go to modern world, the Western world, you can see there are statistics, there are survey reports, there are scientific studies which tell us that 80% of their population of the developed nations read books. So number is 50 plus, number of percentage of book readers in modern society is 50 plus, but in developing nations it is not more than 10%. So a book, knowledge is the power. Today we live in the knowledge age, it's the digital age. Knowledge, society can compete the modern world, the requirements and challenges of the modern world. So if you want to grow, if you want to compete the modern world, you need to produce more readers, you need to make your nation a nation of readers. So more knowledge leaders may be produced from that such society.
Mr. Farooq, who jetted into the country to start the digital library, said he and his mate is here to bring knowledge to the country.
We intend to expand this project in 7 countries where IOU is already based, so hope for the best.
Sher Afzal is the technical expert for the International Open University, the Gambia Digital Library.
These are the new technology which will be implemented in Gambia universities, and we also will be provide automation of library software along with this digital library. We are looking forward to provide automation library project. We also we will also provide you institution repository projects with the Gambia University, and this will be a great change for the youth and other students as well, the faculty members.
Mr. Farooq and Sher were led to the country by the Vice Chancellor and the President of the International Open University, the Gambia, Dr. Chernobari.
It is indispensable today with the new technologies that are emerging that anybody, wherever you are, as long as you have the proper gadgets, you should expect to be accessing education from a telephone, from an iPad, from a computer. You don't really have to travel distances. And this is much more beneficial for Africa, because countries that are developing probably don't have the opportunity to have what we call the infrastructure, the educational post-secondary infrastructure. So it is important that they are able to learn
in a way that would reduce the cost of education, that would reduce the cost of movement, you know, from a place to the other, that would reduce the cost of living for their parents, so that all that will not be a burden, financial burden, but also that would allow them to have a choice of what they want to learn. So the International Open University has always been driving towards that.
It is the International Open University's desire to make their digital library accessible to an array of Gambian students once it is up and running. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
The West African Network for Peace Building has launched the National Election Response Group that works towards complementing government efforts in preventing and mitigating violence before, during and after presidential elections as the country heads towards the December 4th election cycles. Fatou Janembai reports.
December 4th, 2021, the Gambia heads to the polls to decide who becomes the next president, and the need to preserve peace now and after couldn't be more important. Hence the launch of the National Election Response Group. Consisting state and non-state actors, the group works towards preventing and mitigating violence before, during and after presidential elections, thereby complementing the government's efforts. Lavinia Ade Mensah is the Peace Deputy Executive Director at the West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP.
May these various contributions truly contribute to peaceful elections in the Gambia.
David Tommy is the chair of the National Election Response Group.
We have about 20 monitors data further and about 150 observers, so that we can have continuous report coming in on what is happening, where there is hotspot and where there is threat of instability. Okay, the thing is to mitigate violence, and I always say and close such interview with a national anthem for the Gambia, our homeland. Let's make it our homeland and make sure that we are successful.
The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, security sector reforms and the social media wars are all evidence that the Gambia is at a crossroad, and that this is the right time to start promoting peace, said Claude Kondo, the political advisor at ECOWAS.
What is commendable about the establishment of NAG is that it is a local initiative managed by Gambians themselves and supported by international partners. There is overwhelming evidence to show that if deliberate and conscious efforts are not made to douse the tensions in a timely manner, they have the potential to undermine peace, stability, and development in the country.
And for country emerging from conflict or in transition from autocratic regimes, the stakes are even higher. Therefore, systems and structures must be operationalized as a catalyst to prevent and avert political violence in time of elections.
The launch of the National Election Response Group was also graced by Pa Ken, the Director of Training and Communication at the Independent Electoral Commission, and Abubakar Jiber, Senior Assistant Secretary at the Ministry of Information, Communication and Infrastructure.
Conflict and tension are sometimes witnessed during elections for some of these reasons. Electoral violence is a key issue of concern to all stakeholders in the electoral process. Such violence seeks to undermine the very democratic pillar on which elections are based.
The interventions to prevent violence in the upcoming elections should be the exercise of the day to address root causes such as food insecurity and competition over scarce resources.
The National Election Response Group is part of a broader project called the Election Violence Monitoring, Analysis and Mitigation, funded by the European Union, with the aim of contributing to the mitigation of election violence through the implementation of electoral violence prevention mechanisms in 11 target countries in West Africa, including the Gambia. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Fatou Janembai.
Well, that report by Fatou Janembai takes us to a first break. The sports news is up next. Do stay. Over now to sports and to paragliding, which is on the rise in Kenya after years of viewing the event as a foreign import. Many locals are now taking part in the extreme sport as the wave catches on. Well, CGTN's Joy Kiruki has more.
Visiting Kijabe Hills in Kenya on a weekend, the beehive of activity might make you think it is a hiking exercise. However, it is a much more extreme event. Paragliding. And the potential for its growth is immeasurable.
Having seen this place, I know Kenya can be a big paragliding country. You've got the environment, you've got the beautiful view, you've got this hill, and you can start from every side of the hill, which means you can paraglide every day in Kenya. It's just a short drive from Nairobi, and then even better than that, there are places in Kenya where you can paraglide over elephants, rhinos, and over the parks, and that's just a spectacle which you will never forget in your whole life.
The gradual growth of the sport has seen a rise in the number of local paragliders, which has in turn led to an upsurge in following among Kenyans.
First of all, I actually didn't anticipate that it would actually look like this. I get to see this on international stations and all. I actually never thought it would be in Kenya. I've just seen one of our girls top in Africa. So this is very interesting.
It's beautiful. I love the views. That is scary. I wouldn't do it, but I would love to watch that at any time.
For promoters and organizers, the hope is that paragliding will grow into a well-developed sport that can compete with other major events in the country.
You know, if you look at things like motorsports, they've grown up to become so big. Yeah, there's motocross, there's the extreme motocross actually, the same one that has the bikes, motorbikes. It has buggies. So all these sports have become big, and we'd like this sport also to become similar to that. So just create a lot of awareness around the sport, bring more people into it, especially Kenyans. If you look at it, it's like an elite sport, yeah, but it's still accessible to a lot of other people.
Due to the pandemic, many people in Kenya and across the continent seem to have moved to extreme outdoor events. These bodes well for Kenya's paragliding, with more entries expected at the next big event in September. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Well, over now to news from outside the Gambia, beginning in Uganda, where Ugandan wants all automobiles fitted with a tracking device to boost security. The move by the Ugandan government to install digital tracking devices on vehicles to help fight rampant crime has been denounced by rights advocates and the opposition, who say it will be used to monitor activists, government opponents, and critics.
Vehicle tracking company. Most of his customers fix GPS trackers to protect their cars from theft, and for some companies to track the real-time location of their fleet.
The usefulness of these technologies is to simplify, to make our lives better in all aspects. For example, if we look at GPS telematics, we are looking at your asset security. Take, for example, you install this device in your vehicle. The peace of mind you get when you know at any moment I'm able to locate my asset at wherever it is on the globe.
Ugandan authorities now want every vehicle and motorcycle on its roads tracked. Trackers will also be installed on all water vessels. A Russian company has been contracted for 10 years to fix the devices. The government says this will help check criminal activity on the move.
We shall be able to know where any motor vehicle is at any particular time. This is going to help in the investigation to bring the culprit to book.
The mandatory security tracking plan was initiated by Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni to end sporadic gun crime in the country. The government says motorists will meet the cost of installation of the tracking devices, but many are more worried about the GPS trackers that they believe will compromise personal security and interfere with their privacy. The tracking devices will be linked to the country's CCTV system and controlled by centralized traffic monitoring technology. But some people insist the intensified surveillance would infringe on their freedom.
This technology can be entirely abused, and this entirely depends on who has access to this data. Because if you may ask me, as a telematics player for so long, the kind of policies and non-disclosures that we sign with our customers are something that we take seriously, because we are dealing with sensitive data.
Uganda has previously experienced a string of assassinations of prominent politicians, Muslim clerics, and security officials. Most of the murders remain unsolved. The government believes installing tracking devices will help security monitor all movements and quickly respond in case of an incident. But many law-abiding citizens are worried about their right to privacy. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
To Nigeria now, where a major debate is raging over the proposed return of the country's stolen artifacts. Over 1,000 artifacts were stolen from the West African country many years ago.
Artifacts were stolen when British forces conducted an expedition in 1897 on the Benin Kingdom in what is today Edo State in southern Nigeria. A substantial number of the artifacts were sold to museums in Germany. After years of pressure and negotiation, Germany has decided to return the artifacts.
We also agreed to have a definite timeline for the repatriation of the artifacts because Nigeria is tired of an indefinite timeline. Thereafter, it was resolved that the agreement on the repatriation should be signed latest by December this year, and that the repatriation should be concluded by August 2022.
There are questions as to whether Nigeria has the museum standard and manpower required to keep and maintain the artifacts. This prominent Nigerian art collector thinks the country does not.
We need to interrogate ourselves and find out what we can do to prepare to receive the works. For instance, we don't have thermolucence dating machines in Nigeria. We don't have carbon dating machines in Nigeria. And then when people bring works to Nigeria and they tell us this work is 5 million years, we believe them.
The government says it has the capacity to receive and store the works, and that the museum is already in the works as part of the agreement for the return of the artifacts.
We had the local technology to preserve, but this is without, prejudice to the fact that the government is working in partnership with many organizations to provide museum infrastructure.
So we have our curators, our documentation officers, our exhibition officers, our archaeologists, our ethnographers. All these technical teams are there to identify any artifacts.
Most of the artifacts being returned are the famous Benin bronzes. Apart from their cultural and religious significance, they are a huge draw for tourists.
These artifacts are so cherished all over the world, and we realize that if they are returned to Nigeria and properly exhibited within and outside the country, under our control, they stand to increase the influx of tourists to our nation and also earn us good money.
Nigeria has already taken delivery of a number of its stolen artifacts from other countries and sources, but the ones being inspected from Germany will be the largest numbers so far. There is a raging debate in the country over who should be in custody of the artifacts when they're eventually returned, but the central government has made it clear it will be responsible for them. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos.
The World Health Organization says Africa has seen a drop in new cases over the past week, but the World Health Body has been quick to warn that the positive development must not mask the bigger picture on the continent. Over 6.3 million COVID-19 cases have now been reported in Africa, with 160,000 deaths and still counting. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the News at 10. But before we go, a quick look at our headline-making stories. Senior executive members of the Gambia Fashion Designers Association have called on President Adama Barrow at the State House in Banjul. Gambia has recorded over 7,000 COVID-19 cases, with rising local infections linked to the third wave. Attorney General and Minister of Justice has clarified misinformation in media spheres and public discourse on the deferment of submission of the TRRC report to the President. In Kenya, paragliding sports is gaining traction as many locals are now taking part in the extreme sports. And Uganda has introduced digital tracking devices on vehicles to help fight rampant crime. Plus, a major debate heats up in Nigeria over the proposed return of artifacts to their countries of origin. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the News at 10 from me, Winifred Nicole, and the entire news team. Thanks for watching and do have a pleasant night.
Welcome to the TAF Hub. This is a brand new show brought to you by TAF Africa Global to educate you on real estate business and all the information you need to know about real estate.
After 45 years of construction and real estate development in 8 African countries, it is time to share my experience, and it can only be done in the TAF Hub. We will be inviting experts who will give you facts and the right regulations on real estate development.
Join us every week on our social media platforms for an exciting show. You can also watch us on GRTS TV every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قاف والقرآن المجيد. بل عجبوا أن جاءوا